The date was January 15th, 2026. Elias Thorne stood in his cramped kitchen, the air thick with the smell of burnt toast and the hum of a flickering light bulb. In his hand was a slip of thermal paper, the winning ticket for the record-breaking Global Century Jackpot. As the AI-generated voice on the television announced the final digit, Elias didn't scream. He felt a cold, sharp shiver. He was now worth $850 million. But in the dim light of that morning, the shadow he cast on the wall looked jagged, like a claw. At first, it was a dream. Elias imagined the 2026 inflation rates, which had been crushing his soul for years, finally becoming irrelevant. He thought of his wife, Sarah, and their two children, Leo and Mia. He thought he was buying their freedom. He didn't realize he was signing their death warrants. The fortress of paranoia. By early February, the news had leaked. The New Year billionaire was no longer a secret. To protect them, Elias moved the family into a smart estate, a sprawling, AI-driven fortress in the hills. The house was a marvel of 2026 technology, equipped with biometric scanners and autonomous security drones that buzz like angry hornets day and night. But the protection felt like a prison. Sarah couldn't go to the grocery store without a three-man security detail. The kids were pulled from school and placed under the care of high-end AI tutors. The walls weren't just made of stone, they were made of suspicion. Elias began to spend his nights in the command center, watching the thermal cameras. He saw threats in every shadow. When Sarah's brother called to ask for a loan to cover his rising medical bills, Elias didn't hear a plea for help. He heard a con. He blocked the number. That was the first thread of the bloodline to snap. The digital poison. The money began to rot their hearts from the inside out. On the advice of high society advisors, Elias moved a massive chunk of the fortune into volatile crypto assets and AI-managed hedge funds. The stress of the 2026 market fluctuations turned him into a ghost. He spent dinner staring at holographic tickers, his eyes bloodshot. The argument started over the smallest things. Sarah wanted to donate to the old neighborhood. Elias, terrified of losing a single cent to the unworthy, refused. He began to suspect that even his own children were being coached by Sarah's lawyers to secure a future settlement. He installed trust monitoring software on their devices, tracking their every word. The domestic warmth of the Thorne family was replaced by a bitter, clinical coldness. Trust wasn't just broken. It was erased by the sheer volume of the wealth, the silent exit. The breaking point came in mid-February, during a heated legal battle over asset protection. Leo and Mia were forced to choose sides. They looked at their father, a man who once played football in the park, now a shivering shell of a human obsessed with tax implications. And they chose to leave. One by one, they vanished. Sarah was the first, leaving her wedding ring on a cold marble countertop. Then the children followed, opting for a modest life of anonymity over the toxic luxury of this state. They didn't want the money. They wanted their father back. But that man was gone. He had been replaced by a bank balance. The prisoner of the jackpot. Today is February 26, 2026. Elias Thorne sits alone in a dining hall designed to seat 40 people. The silence is so heavy it feels like it's crushing his lungs. He has the financial means to buy a private island, a fleet of jets, or 1,000 new friends. But as he looks at the empty chairs, he realizes the terrifying truth. The 2026 jackpot wasn't prize. It was a trade. For every zero added to his account, a heartbeat was removed from his home. He is the richest man in the cemetery. He lives in a golden tomb, guarded by drones that ensure no one can get in, and no one can help him out. He won the lottery, but the jackpot cost him the only thing money can't buy: the sound of a loved one's voice in the dark. After the heavy iron gates of the Thorne estate clicked shut for the last time, Sarah and the children didn't look back. They didn't take the armored SUVs or the designer luggage. They walked away with only what they could carry, leaving behind a world of gold that had turned into lead. For Sarah, the first few weeks were a blur of shadows. She knew that Elias's AI-driven security drones were likely still searching for them, programmed by his paranoia to retrieve his assets. To survive in 2026, they had to go off the grid. They traded their smart devices for old-fashioned analog gear and moved into a small, drafty cabin in the northern woods. The inflation that Elias had feared so much was now their daily reality, making every loaf of bread a luxury. But for the first time in months, the air in the room didn't taste like metal and fear. The haunted inheritance. While Sarah fought for a normal life, the children carried a different kind of scar. Leo, the eldest, would often wake up in the middle of the night, convinced he heard the low hum of a surveillance drone outside the cabin window. He had seen how money could turn a loving father into a monster, and he grew to hate the very idea of wealth. Even though they lived in poverty, a strange legal shadow followed them. Because Elias had moved so much of the jackpot into automated crypto trusts, the AI Executors began sending digital pings to the children's hidden accounts. Every time a new dividend cleared, a notification would appear like a ghost. You are the beneficiary of $10 million. To Leo and Mia, these weren't gifts. They were tracking beacons. They refused to touch a single cent, knowing that the moment they spent that blood-stained money, their father's protection would find them and drag them back to the golden tomb. The last message. By late February 2026, the family had achieved a fragile peace. They spent their evenings around a wood-burning stove, telling stories of the man Elias used to be, the man who would burn the toast and laugh about it, rather than the man who calculated the tax loss of a ruined breakfast. One night, a final message broke through their digital firewall. It wasn't a legal threat or a bank alert. It was a grainy 10-second video file from the state's kitchen camera. In it, Elias was sitting alone, holding a tattered drawing Mia had made in kindergarten. He wasn't looking at his crypto tickers or his security feeds. He was just weeping, the sound muffled by the vast, empty silence of the mansion. Sarah deleted the file. She knew that if they went back to save him, the jackpot would consume them too. The money was a living thing now, a curse that required a family to stay broken, so the balance could stay high. They chose to be poor. They chose to be cold. But above all, they chose to be free.